So this is, a lot of people liked the video I did about TPC Doodoo or not. A video series where I read the DLM tier list, as you guys know, made by the TPC, which are the players that earn the most points in Duel Links Meta's tournaments. I think Meta Weekly, Meta Freakly, and MCS. I don't know if Freakly gives them points, actually, but whatever. Well, I'm assuming that does. And this is one people people keep asking me about this. Tier 1 Automat, Tier 2 Gaia, Tier 3 Harpies, Resonator Tech Genus, and Thunder Dragons. Now, I'm not gonna be when I'm looking at these tiers, I'm not gonna be thinking about power rankings, the DLM or the DLE power rankings, because the way they do their tier list is different. Tier 1's expected to be a large percentage of top cut in competitive tournaments. That's automats. Expected to be in top cut of competitive tournaments, but not a large percentage, Gaia. And then expected to be played in competitive tournament with the possibility of being in the top cut, which is everything else. Now, based on those guidelines, and based on going over to our Discord and hitting up the Battle Phase top 8 decks and going in to all the other community tournaments by accessing the what all the top 32 conversion rates have been, by their standards, what their tier list should look like statistically from last week's events. Automat should be at Tier 1. Gaia, Thunder Dragon, Resonators, and I'm not 100. I don't remember Harpies off the top of my head, but I think Harpies would be in Tier 2. But definitely Thunder Dragon and Resonators would be joining them in Tier 2, and then everything else would be in Tier 3. That if they were following these guidelines specifically, because automats by far, I mean, we can go check the huge $500 tournament we just had. Let me pull that up real quick. Yeah, so if we go up in there into the tournament breakdowns at our Discord channel, you can see that there were 23 automats in the top 64, followed by Resonator, TG, Gaia, Shiranui. Those are the next kind of highest. So I guess you could technically put TG on there, but this was the first time TG did so well. In previous weeks, it did not. It's more of a possibility being in top cut. If anything, I would change Gaia down here to Tier 3 with everybody else. You know? So, that is what we're going in. Technically speaking, they're not following their guidelines here. So that's a strike. So let's see what they have to say. This is the most important part of the tier list update. This right here, this is all irrelevant. This means nothing without context, right? Like, all of this means absolutely nothing. This is what you just clickbait people on. This is irrelevant. What's relevant is what the good players actually say, right? So here we go. Drizzles. Let's see what Drizzles has to say. Finally, we see some changes in the tier list. Look how excited he is, bro. Same. Gaia got promoted to Tier 2 due to having a relatively good matchup spread across the meta. And utility use powerful cards, just TTH. What the? In a 20-card deck. Additionally, Tech Genus got promoted to Tier 3. Not only is this deck used during the final stage of KCGT, we also saw multiple top players using this deck, but has been lately seen successful in tournaments and leagues. Now, unless I'm mistaken, I believe this tier list should be based on side deck format, right? And power ranking is more of the ladder format. And I do know that DLM does, they do the, what do you call it? What's the name? They do the KC Cup week meta, or tier list meta, but we're not in a KC Cup, so I don't know why that has any relevance. Worlds is not the same format. So that has no relevancy. That should have no relevancy, based on this, basically. That should have no relevancy that it did well at Worlds. Worlds is a different format. We also saw multiple top players using this deck, but also been really successful in tournaments and leagues. Alright, read that. Aside from that, we've seen several rogue decks do well in KCG, like Cyber Dragon, Lunalight, true. KCG Top Cut also had more fringe decks like Hero Flash Stall. Hero Flash Stall technically won all of Worlds, bro. What the? They didn't play him at Worlds, and he only won one round with it. He actually only won one duel at all of Worlds, but technically, he won Worlds with Hero Flash. Yo, Worlds is so scuffed. You cannot extract any data from Worlds. It was so scuffed. Literally, you cannot extract anything from it. I disregard Worlds when I think of meta analysis, because that shit is bad. Oh god, dude. Anyway. Stall Vampires Maikashi do their special format with a shared card pool across 3 decks. These decks could possibly be successful in side deck format as well, so be aware. Yo, it's major copium, bro, but hey, I'm right there with you. Let's go. Anything to change the meta. Even without a new box being released in the game, yet the meta is experiencing changes during this automat-dominated format. While there's only changes to the tier list as Gaia being promoted and TG being added, this still adds room for rogue decks to proper place in the meta. Cyber Dragon is still a powerful high roll deck that has favorable matchups against Tech Genus and Gaia. There are rogue decks that can also beat these new additions, which may see a rise in play and influence main and side deck choices throughout the metagame. Okay. Jade Hex with projections on the new mini box not looking too great. What the? Barring some insane Chronomaly skill, it propels him to the tier list. No hope, dude. No hope. What the? Come on. You gotta hype the boys. It's expected that automats will remain at the forefront of this meta until the introduction of the Arc 5 world. Yo, pendulums with 1 zone though. Let's go. As far as deck building trends go, players have been shifting away from the package of Gaga Mancer, Gaga Wind, and Gaga Samurai in order to slot in more tech cards in both the main and extra deck. We will have to see if the slightly increased diversity of non-automat decks in the format will spread the automat tech slots thin enough to shake up the meta considerably, but we should expect automats to continue the reign of the upcoming month. This is the one that everyone keeps asking me to read, Gaia. Everyone is mad that Gaia is in Tier 2. We got some comments from iMagikarp. Gaia finally moves up to a long overdue Tier 2 position. I don't know, man. Gaia has been solid in the metagame. On power rankings, at least, has constantly been 3rd and 4th place. But I don't think they've gone beyond 3rd, so I don't know about that. But okay. While its matchup against Automat is horrible, if they're using Mystical Space Typhoon, it gets slightly more interesting if they aren't, albeit still favorable, since Galloping Gaia won't stay on the field very long due to Gaga Bolt. What the? True. To try and beat the lone Tier 1 deck, Gaia decks have started to play more trap cards. True, dude. Jesus. And Canadian Fiendish over TTH and Forbidden Chalice, which are less useful against turn 1 Photon Strike Bowser. True, true. The goal of the trap-oriented shift is to grind down automat player instead of trying to attack through it. Oh, through it, sorry. I read that weird. It boasts strong to neutral matchups against the rest of the tier decks, which is why I feel tier 2 is appropriate. I believe there are some rogue decks that can give Gaia trouble, such as Cyber Dragon, which maintains good to okay matchups against the other decks, which should start seeing usage again, unless Konami decides to end it completely. Yo, bro, they're gonna nerf the shit out of... You know they're gonna nerf the shit out of Cyber Dragon. Cyber Dragon was actually in the top 5 decks last week. So if we are to take what iMagikarp here says about Gaia, then Gaia is going to get absolutely obliterated because Cyber Dragon usage and Cyber Dragon top 8 rate is really as like an all-time high right now. Because Cyber Dragon is all over the goddamn place, dude. What the? How can you sack so hard? Alright, what else we got? Tier 3, iMagikarp says Harpies still remain on the list primarily as gatekeepers to non-tiered back row decks. True. That's the thing. Harpies is kind of like the gatekeeper of the metagame. They're not going to win on their own, but it can still beat other tier decks, but its only favorable matchup is the newly tiered Tech Genus deck. It's not a bad deck, and if entering tournaments you still want to consider siding number 18 Patriarch for this matchup, warranting its position on the list. True, true, true. Umso, bro, I love Umso. He's the only reason I read these things. Resonator deck did not really change in the last few months. The last few weeks, the matchups more or less remain the same. Fun fact, 2 weeks ago, RDA beat Automats on the power rankings, and then last week, they tied in points. So I think a lot of people are underestimating RDA. I think it's one of the most flexible decks in the metagame, especially when you start mixing it with other decks. What the? It only gained an unfavorable matchup in Tech Genus. Well, listen, Tech Genus is a high roll deck. You know, it is what it is. However, that has changed without the realization that people weren't abusing the deck to its fullest. See? Yo! Umso is galactic brain, I'm telling you! Okay, previously people were trying to find engines in order to support their rather weak deck. I swear, this guy just reads my mind and then just posts it every time. Like, I always pause to talk about something, and then he just says it right after. What the hell? Is he editing the document as I read? Nani? Resonators never uses normal summon as part of its combo, which is a huge waste for a deck. The normal summon is the most important summon in the game, and not getting at the most value lowered the ceiling by a lot. This is why people experimented with Element Sabers and Stratos to support the deck, given that these are level 4 monsters such as synergize with the Synchro plays. On top of that, they are powerful normal summons since Element Saber Malehu is a Bookamoon on legs, true, and Stratos is the best gadget in the game. They're very solid. The way he said that was hilarious. Oh god. Anyway, they are very solid engines that are eventually found not to be too impressive and have since been replaced with more back row. It begs the question, instead of trying to find an engine for Resonator, why not use Resonator as an engine for other decks? While it's fairly difficult with the restrictions from Demon's Resonance, Crimson, and Red Rising, it's something players are currently trying to do. An easy solution. Oh god, I just lost my place like crazy. An easy solution is to put Resonator together with Fire King. What the? Fire King never relied on the extra deck, but was rather slow. Resonator is explosive, but never had a good protection. Aside from having high life points, there's small synergy in red, Resonator being a fire monster with Arvada to negate monster effects of the full Resonator combo. Another idea is put Resonator's Thunder Dragon deck. As we saw him play, he actually topped with Resonator Thunder Dragon. Resonator must provide tribute fodder for the deck, allows Thunder Dragon to unbrick. Love of Synchros is Darkened Dragon and Black Rose, the cost of Exceed access. Thunder Dragon Duo is actually a decent boss monster for strategy. Its big body provides recovery. On top of that, Demon's Resonance can search Luna the Dark Spirit, no simping, which can banish a dark monster from the graveyard, triggering Dark or Roar. Also, a lot of Resonator cards are dark attribute monsters which can be used for Chaos Dragon Levianeer. There will probably be other strategies with Resonators and Engine in the near future. These strategies will come discovered soon, given that the KC Cup's right around the corner, and that could be potentially balance adjustment, which could hurt the Resonator Engine. True, we'll have to wait and see what happens. I agree, dude. RDA is severely underappreciated. 2 weeks in a row, they've been first place. 1, sole first place in power rankings, and 2, they shared it with Onomats. And people keep disrespecting Resonators. They are actually doing very well in the community tournament scene, in the side deck scene, you know? Maybe not so much without a side deck, but with a side deck, I mean, I think RDA is the most flexible deck in the meta, which is hilarious because they're locked because of their skill and stuff like that. But in terms of being able to use their normal summon, they're very flexible. Now, is it going to become the best deck? I don't know. Automats are hard to beat, but it should definitely be higher than Gaia IMO in terms of power level. But again, this tier list isn't made based on power level. If this tier list was pure power, it would be Automat, RDA, and then the rest of the decks down here. That's what it would look like. But this tier list is made depending on what will top, the percentages of tops, which technically, if we're going based off what their initial statements are here, expected to be not a large percentage, expected to be a huge percentage, then it should be Automats at top, Gaia, RDA, Resonator, Thunder Dragons, and maybe Tech Genus tier 2, and then like Harpies by themselves tier 3, and then like some other decks that are rogue strategy. Technically, that is what their tier list should have looked like if they based it off of these actual statements here. If it was a power, like in terms of raw strength, in terms of testing, I think it should be Automat, RDA, and then everything else down here. That's what I think. All right, here we go. TG is here, and it's top tier. The deck's a pile of cards, which work well together surprisingly well. The deck focuses on the 2-card interaction between Screw Serpent and Boost Raptor. These 2 cards can end in a lot of different boards. We literally saw -1 win. We literally saw -1 win a duel where his skill bugged out off of just using the Boost Raptor and Survivals in combo. the TG deck is more than just Halberd Cannon spam. Halberd Cannon spam's the crutch, but there's way more to the deck than that if you're winning without your skill. However, 2 cards is not enough to build a functioning deck, so the deck has a lot of synchronous cards. Since Boost Raptor is a level 1 dinosaur monster, the graveyard effects trigger it would be destroyed. People will say Mysticosaurus and Fossil Dix, and so not only special summon Boost Raptor itself, it also destroys that raptor in the end phase. So Screw Serpent in the end phase. Additionally, Survival's End is the best dinosaur support card in the game. True, which also synergizes with Misk and Raptor, make it easy inclusion, since it specifically requires normal monsters, Canadia and Morella come into play live. Yes, not only that, they revive themselves as normal monsters, yes, for these Survivals In. Last not least, the deck has several self-mills, since we have a lot of cards with graveyards, such as Raiden, which is also a tuner with Charge Light Brigade, and Needlebug Nest, which is also a trap for Paleozoic that are included. People usually include more traps in the deck depending on the preference. As such, deck size can vary from anywhere from 23 to 30 cards. Between the card and the variety and large toolbox provided by Set Delta XL, Tech Genius has a lot of good matchups in this meta, which warrant the side of cards like DD Crow in order to deal with decks. As such, easy inclusion to the tier list. And then N says, Set Delta XL, Tech Genius has been added to tier list due to its ability to make use of various graveyard effects and synchro monsters to multiple plays, and the Paleozoic trap cards. TG cards and Survival's End without losing too much advantage. Committing to a field, their use of Canadia's generic disruption. Able to revive from the grave, from chaining to any trap effect, use a set Survival's End thanks to Paleozoic Canadia. This is a role of TG Booster Raptor, pop in the grave, Screw Serpent, search, go to the synchro plays. Set up Black Rose or Halberd Cannon, control opposed board. The deck is so reliant on grave effects recovering the grave, mixes other cards like DD Crow, mostly automat DD Crow, but being enough of a threat to force people to consider siding such a card to deal with the deck shows how powerful it can be. Yo, true. The ability to use middle cards like Lightsworn Engine to set up graveyard effects like Misk, Survivals, Paleozoic, etc. to set up their synchro combos, disruption, and card advantage while being able to make blind Mystical Space Typhoon on their back row effective. True. You do not want to blind MST. You do not want to blind MST, TG, dude. It's the don't do that. Makes it a strong contender in the meta. Yeah, everyone's trying to outdo Umso, but you can't. He's the GOAT, dude. I love this. Listen, the best part of reading these updates is just listen to what Umso has to say. The boy is big, 5-head, dude. And I'm not saying that only because he agrees with me. That's only like half the reason I say that. So yeah, my thoughts overall, I think, yeah, if you want to like get down to like nitpick style, I'm not really here to nitpick, but if you do want to nitpick, they're not technically following like what these are. They're including things like worlds, they're including things like their own testing, which is nice, that's fine and all, but technically that's not following this. If you go look at all of the, even if you don't want to look at free tournaments, you just want to look at high prize pool tournaments, there's GG Tours, there's Battle Step, there's Meta Weekly, there's MCS, there's all those tournaments. If you look at all those, even that does not support this tier list. What would my tier list be? So I just said there's two ways if you're going to make a tier list. If you want to do it based on DLM's rules, what it should look like with no excuse, Automat Tier 1, Gaia should be at Tier 2, with Thunder Dragon, Resonators, and maybe Tech Genus. Tech Genus recently started technically not being a large percentage of the top cut. And then possibility of being in the top cut, that's Harpies. And some other rogue strategies like Lunalights and stuff like that. If you're going based off of just raw strength, I personally would say Automats Tier 1, Gaia Tier 2, or I'm sorry, Automats Tier 1, Red Dragon, Archfiend, Red Resonator deck, Tier 2, based off of power rankings, right? Because that's what power rankings are, kind of how they actually did. And then the rest, everything else would be Tier 3. You've got Automats Tier 1, Resonators Tier 2, maybe even Resonators joining Automats in Tier 1 because they have the highest chance of being fixed. And then everything else in Tier 3. That's how I would change, depending on if you're going by DLM standard or if you're going by DLE standard, essentially, is what I'm saying here. They do also have the power ranking as well, which you could see is vastly different. But this is irrelevant because this also takes King of Games into account. And King of Games is kind of a meme. to be placing in here. Even if it's scaled, it's kind of a meme. I mean, Blue Eyes in tier 2. You know, Cyber Dragon should probably be on here somewhere, maybe as a tier 3 or something, but I mean, come on, Harpy's in the same tier as all these other decks? Nah, bruh, that ain't it, champ. Harpy is the gatekeeper, but they ain't actually the ones destined to win. You know? Oh, God. Let's go! Resonator is underappreciated? Absolutely. Go check the power rankings from the last 2 weeks. Resonator is so good and underappreciated right now. And I think we'll be better, because I think a lot of top players are experimenting. Because in terms of the meta shifting without Konami like coming in and influencing it, realistically, Resonator's the only one that has a chance, you know?